Good morning. We are thrilled to have you with us virtually today at the NC Chamber's Environmental Compliance Conference, presented by Robinson Bradshaw. It is my pleasure to introduce our MC for the event, Sean Sullivan. Sean?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Janelle, and to the NC Chamber for hosting this event. Again, my name is Sean Sullivan. I'm with Robinson Bradshaw, and we're proud to be today's presenting sponsor. I'd like to take a brief moment to also thank our silver sponsors, Duke Energy, MVP Southgate, and SureTape Technologies, our bronze sponsors, Geosyntec Consultants, Mid-Atlantic Associates, and Synterra, and our patron sponsors, all of whom are featured in the sponsor area of the virtual platform and in your digital program in the main feed as well. Let me kick off with a couple of brief housekeeping items. First, the program and speaker lineup can be found in the lobby under the agenda tab. Today's sessions are all taking place live in the main stage area. If you have any questions for today's speakers, please submit those via the Q&A function. If you haven't had a chance to update your profile in the people section, we would encourage you to do that so that you can start connecting and maximize your networking opportunities. The lounge area is accessible throughout the event as well, and an allocated network, and also during the networking break times this morning. We hope you visit the lounges for real-time group conversations. And for one-on-one conversation, you can chat directly with other attendees by clicking on the People tab on the menu. For those of you who'd like to follow along on Twitter, we'll be using the hashtag NCEnviro. Lastly, we'll send out an email recap of today's event, including the recording and any PowerPoint presentations that we use today. So don't feel like you need to take notes. That email will also have information on how to request CLE credit for today's event. As North Carolina continues on a favorable trajectory as the top state for business nationwide, it's imperative we strive for transparency, certainty, and support for the business community. The upcoming census data projects that North Carolina is poised to become the 7th most populous state by 2030. To ensure a healthy growth that benefits all and to strengthen our ranking as a great place to work and live, we must strike a balance and protect our state's environment while encouraging a thriving business climate for our current and future job creators. We have a great lineup for you today. You'll hear from environmental justice and compliance experts, as well as NCDEQ officials on the latest environmental issues and regulations that matter most to your business in the areas of air, water, or waste. And you'll also get some good practice tips for compliance planning as well. It's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Bill Lane, the General Counsel for the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Bill is responsible for overseeing all legal matters for the agency and serves as the primary legal advisor to DEQ's leadership team. He has led DEQ in the resolution of several significant matters, including large-scale cleanup of coal ash and PFAS compounds. Prior to joining DEQ, Bill practiced environmental law for 20 years at Kilpatrick Townsend in Raleigh, where he represented business and government clients. He also worked in environmental consulting, and he holds a professional engineer's license. Bill earned a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Notre Dame, which I don't hold against him, go Canes, a master's degree in civil engineering and environmental engineering from the University of Texas at Austin, and a law degree from UNC Chapel Hill. Please welcome Bill to the main stage.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you this morning. We're having a little challenge with my camera on my laptop. It did work yesterday in the demo, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the presentation, and you will go with the screen that you have in front of you. I do want to thank Sean for the kind introduction and to the Chamber for inviting me to this special event. It's great to be back with you. As we all know, it's been a challenging year since we last got together to talk about these important issues. I know that it's been a challenging and transformative year for many of you, and that's also true at DEQ. We're really in interesting times. We've had a lot of, let's say, unwanted change thrust upon us at work and at home. I know my at home. My daughter, our youngest, is a freshman at UNC and arrived on campus in August and lasted there about 2 weeks before all on-campus students were sent home. She spent the fall semester at home. She's back there now, giving it another shot, and happy to be there. At DEQ, most of our employees have also been working at home. And along the way, we've learned to do things like host virtual public meetings and attend virtual conferences like this. You're going to hear more today from some of our division directors and program managers about what's keeping them busy and what their teams are working on. I will add, it's been great to work with the DEQ people that you're going to meet today. Renee, Mike, Danny, Michael. These guys are really professionals in what they do, and I think you'll get a lot out of their presentations. I'll also add that we're going through a couple of transitions at DEQ. First, in our Division of Marine Fisheries, our director, Steve Murphy, just retired last week. And in his place, we have put John Batherson, an attorney from, excuse me, from my team, on an interim basis until a permanent replacement is found. And of course, the big news at DEQ, as everybody has heard, is that Secretary Michael Regan has been nominated to lead the US EPA. And I would like to spend some time talking about what that means here today. First of all, kudos to the conference planners for the great timing. It turns out that Secretary Regan's confirmation hearing is this afternoon before the US Senate's Environment and Public Works Committee. You should watch that. I plan to watch it. I think the committee has its own YouTube channel, but I'm sure it will be available live and online. The meeting starts at 2 o'clock in DC, and Secretary Regan will be introduced by Senators Burr and Tillis. If his nomination is voted out of committee, as we hope it will be, it'll need to then be approved by the full Senate. And we've been told that Secretary Regan will be in charge of DEQ until he's actually confirmed. So how is all of this going down at DEQ? Well, first of all, there's a lot of excitement that our leader is moving up to the big leagues, starting in around mid-December and really continuing to this day. There's been a lot of buzz about what's happening with Secretary Regan. I know all of my phone lit up around December 17th, and others had the same experience. People have asked me if I'm going to move to DC, and as someone who grew up there and who's married to someone who doesn't want to go back there, my answer has been no. But it's still a few folks from DEQ are planning to move to DC and work with Secretary Regan at EPA should his confirmation be successful. Certainly his outgoing personality and his care for environmental issues in North Carolina, those will be missed and will be difficult, a challenge to replace in the very same way. But certainly one thing that came out of this process is that a lot of the spotlight was put on what has been accomplished at DEQ over the last 4 years, and to that extent, it was like a vote of confidence for the staff at DEQ, who are very proud of what's been accomplished. And I'll also say there's sort of an air of anticipation about the confirmation process at DEQ, and also the transition to a new leader at the agency. And let me say this now before we get to the Q&A session later. I don't know who the governor is going to name as our new secretary, and I don't know when that announcement will be made. So for those of you who have met Secretary Regan, you know that he'll be up to the challenge at EPA. He has certainly made a lasting impact at DEQ over the last 4 years, and I want to share a couple of examples of that. There are many to pick from. First, under the umbrella of Governor Cooper's Executive Order 80 on climate change, DEQ has worked with a number of stakeholders to develop the North Carolina Clean Energy Plan. What is the Clean Energy Plan? Well, it is a plan. It's a large document created by the DEQ team, the product of input from many different people from many walks of life. It's an in-depth review of our state's energy resources and what the future may hold for the state of North Carolina. And in the area of climate change, it makes the following recommendations. First, a couple of targets for the state to aim towards. For a 70% reduction in carbon emissions based off the 2005 baseline level from the electric power sector by 2030, and then also carbon neutrality by 2050. So how are we going to get to these targets? Well, the plan provides numerous policy recommendations for consideration by just about everyone: electric utilities, government officials, businesses, clean energy advocates, really anybody who's interested in this topic. And there are two significant recommendations known as A1 and B1. A1 is about developing a carbon reduction policy through a variety of options, including the accelerated retirement of coal-fired units, market-based carbon reduction programs, like a cap and trade program, and clean energy policies or something like a renewable energy portfolio standard or a clean energy standard. North Carolina already has a REP standard in place now, and that could be updated. So that's A1. What about B1? B1 focuses on developing innovative regulatory policies. Why? To try and align the needs of the utilities with customers' expectations and technology innovation. So some examples of these innovations are competitive procurement or perhaps multi-year rate planning. These are ideas that have already been either tried or at least pursued in North Carolina and are still on the drawing board. So I encourage you all to take a look at the Clean Energy Plan and the follow-up documents that have come from that. There's a lot of activity going on in this area, especially as we begin a new political season here in North Carolina. So Secretary Regan had a large impact on that topic. He also had a big impact in the area of environmental justice. And many of you, I think, have heard about this. And if you haven't, you're going to hear more about it in the next session. So under Secretary Regan's leadership, DEQ has been active in developing ways to promote better awareness in communities who might be impacted by decisions made by DEQ, permitting decisions, rules, and other rulemaking and other types of decisions that we make on a regular basis. How have we done this? How have we created this awareness? And let me say that this awareness is really intended to go in two directions, so that the communities know that we're doing and that we are aware of what the communities care about. Who lives in these communities? What is the makeup of the community? We've created a tool. Again, you'll hear more about this in the next session. We've created a tool to identify communities by demographics and socioeconomic factors. We have been working with that, using that information to enhance public participation and outreach in our decision making. And Secretary Regan also created the North Carolina Environmental Justice and Equity Advisory Board. This is a group, a diverse group of non-regulatory, it's a volunteer panel of community representatives from all over the state who provide guidance in public meetings to DEQ, and also ask DEQ to make presentations really as a forum for the public to understand what the agency is doing in the area of EJ. So again, two key areas where Secretary Regan is leaving an impact. And I say this because I have a high level of confidence that he will be confirmed. I'm not going to bet on that, but I think he's got a good shot. So again, the two areas he's been involved in and left an impact on: clean energy plan and environmental justice. And I don't think there's much doubt that these two issues, climate and EJ, are ones that he will take on as the EPA administrator. But even if he didn't care much about them personally, his new boss would make him do it anyway. President Biden campaigned on both of these issues, and he's assembled a leadership team focused broadly on climate and EJ. And he's already taken executive action in both of these areas. So we're seeing the transformation, not just in North Carolina, but across the country on these issues. Again, you'll find out more about what DEQ is doing in this area, in these areas today. And we encourage you to, if you're interested, to get engaged with us on these issues. Let me add a few other thoughts about Secretary Regan. As we begin a new political season here in North Carolina, I'm reminded from my own experience how he showed us that environmental stewardship does not have to be a partisan political issue. He spent ample time, I think, with elected officials on both sides of the aisle, and he traveled across the state to highlight both environmental successes and to put the spotlight on environmental damage when it was called for. But he went, I think he visited somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90 counties in North Carolina to make that point. But he also, he preached about how the environment and the economy can thrive together. Again, not trying to find differences, but to find common ground. So I expect that his uncommon talents will be on full display this afternoon and really over the next 4 years. And again, for those of you who know him or have worked with him, I hope that I think you might agree with that. So in closing, I will say, I think our state has benefited from the leadership of Michael Regan, and as a result, DEQ is well positioned to meet the challenges that will be coming our way now and in the future. I want to thank you all for having me here today, and I think there's time for a few questions through the Q&A. Thanks again.
Janelle, Talissa, have we gotten any questions from any of the folks who are participating or who are attending this morning?
No questions have come in.
All right, well then, thank you, Bill, for being here this morning, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think we all agree that Secretary Regan has been a very dynamic leader in the state, and I think we all wish him nothing but the best in DC. Oh, great. One question just did pop in.
Yep, I see that. Question, I'll read and then I'll answer. So the question is, does DEQ have a legislative agenda. So we are developing some priority issues. We haven't not assembled a complete document or put anything up for public consumption or delivered much detail to the legislative leadership. So I would, that is in the works, but is not in any state of completion yet. At the same time, we are also working on our contribution to the governor's budget, which will also be in effect a legislative agenda. So both of those issues are in the works, but have not been completely assembled. Another question. Can you comment on the status of DEQ's legal challenge to the 2020 WOTUS rule? So this is the rule adopted by EPA last year. It's also known as the Navigable Waters Rule. It was the newer version of the waters of the US definition that replaced what had been adopted by EPA previously in 2015 in the Obama administration. The short answer is DEQ is a party to the litigation, what we call the multi-state litigation, where about, I would guess, 20 states plus or minus are challenging the 2020 rule in the Northern District of California. We're one of the plaintiffs in that case. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you, Sean, for having me here this morning, and good luck for the rest of the day.